Sure, that'd be great. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I think we'll get started. So come on in, have a seat. There's plenty of chairs. So if you don't know me, my name is Peter Eichten, and I am a deacon, and I am the moderator at the present time. But I would like to call all of the deacons to come up here and join me, because this has been an incredible time for us as deacons, and it's been a great team effort. We've been working together very well, and well, we have our differences, but it's been really a great team effort. And I just want to recognize them. So before Beth comes up here, I want to start with a prayer. So I know we just got out of church, but that's okay. So let's just take a moment of quiet. And God, we ask that you open our hearts and you open our minds, that we are able to really hear and do your work. As we go through this transition time, I'm reminded of the words of St. Paul, who wrote in his letter to the Galatians, "There is only one thing that matters, and that is faith. Faith that is expressed through love." Those to me are words of great wisdom and of great power. There's only one thing that matters, and that's faith that's expressed through love. And if anything is true, I have felt that love here at Plymouth in many, many ways. And I pray that we continue to do that. Amen. So, we got this message this week from Beth, and the deacons knew about this a little bit before the message came out, obviously. And our first reaction was very much sadness. But at the same time, as we talked to Beth, we were excited. We got excited for her, for what this opportunity that she's got means to her. And so with that mixture of joy and sadness, well, we're here today, and so I'm going to call Beth up, and she's going to say a few words, and then it'll be open for you with questions and comments.
Good morning, friends. I really didn't know I was supposed to say something, so I'm going to try to say a few things, and then I'll take some questions. I feel like I spelled out sort of my process in the letter that I sent on Wednesday, and then there was another way to view it during the Friday email. So if you haven't read the letter yet, I invite you to do that, because it talks about that this has been a long discernment process for me, and an important one. All discernment is significant. And this, for me, started about 18 months ago when I turned 55. And so in periods of discernment in my life, I stay very tuned in to signs along the way. And sometimes I can get stuck, and it is it is the sign, or something becomes the catalyst for a change that I've been sort of resisting. And there were several of those along the way as I tried to figure out what this last chapter of my working career. As I professed in my letter, I am determined to retire. Now I have about 9 years left before I turn 65, but I'm determined to retire, and I began to really reflect on, first of all, being astounded that 30 years of ministry was in my past, and I had, at that time, 10 years of active ministry left. I believe my ministry will continue until I die, as I hope all of you who know a calling understand too. It's not confounded by where we're employed. It's about how God is beckoning us into the world. And so I think there's been some surprise, not just in the timing, but also in the place. Detroit Lakes is about 3.5 hours away. I had never been to Detroit Lakes before. Some people are trying to make the connection between a family cabin that we own in Wisconsin and my move, and no, we're going even farther away. But I have felt for a while a call away from the metro area. I've lived in the metro for almost all of 30 years. I had a little time, 3 years, where I wasn't here. But I have felt a call to something smaller, a pace that was different. And for me, a lot of my discernment was around community. I have known community always in the churches that I have served, and I certainly know community here. But I do not live in Minneapolis. I live 30 miles away. 2 years ago, I sold my home of 18 years in Stillwater and lost my community there and moved. Along the way, blessedly found and discovered my beloved, and we are looking to create community together. And so part of that discernment was to know community with the church that I would be called to serve, but also to know it in a broader way, to be a really vibrant part of the community in which we reside. And for me, that feels like a smaller community than the Twin Cities. So that was part of it. When I finally launched my materials into the world, which Mark will say is like writing a master's thesis when you write a minister's profile. It's laborious and long. It takes a long time. It took me a very long time. As I was moving through a time of discernment. I thought the hardest thing would be to launch it into the world and then see what happened. I wasn't really sure how I would present on paper. I knew I could maybe make an impression in person, but on paper I wasn't certain. It's been a long time since I've done this. And what I discovered was that launching my profile wasn't the hardest part. It was really being faithful to where God was calling me, because I was blessed by lots of response and by many different contexts in many different states, many different sizes of churches. It was all rather overwhelming, but in an affirming way. I had several offers to consider, and I just leaned into the fact that I would know when the right time was to say yes. And so I said no to several opportunities, and I stopped processes before they got too far with certain churches. But from my very first conversation with the good folk in Detroit Lakes, I felt something really stirring in me. I have served small churches for 15 years of my career, and I have a big heart for the small church. It's my kind of relationship that I'm looking for. I have known deep and abiding relationship with so many of you, and it has been the deepest privilege of my life, really, to serve at Plymouth. But I felt my heart being called not only to a smaller community, but to a smaller church, but to a smaller church that held the kind of values. So I need a church that is like Plymouth, that is working for justice that is radically inclusive, where my daughter would always know home. And this little church in Detroit Lakes is the beacon of progressivism in a fairly conservative area. And so, and they're committed to it. They're unabashedly committed to it, and that was really important to me, and I want to help them continue to make transformational change where they are. And so that also led a big piece to my decision. Another part of this is that I would not do this alone. It's too big of a moving away from my entire network, from my beloved mother, who I will remind you all is a Plymouth member and who'll need your care in the time that I am not here. My beloved husband brings her to church every Sunday, so while you may not see her, I pray that you will continue to remember her and reach out to her upon occasion, where she will need your care. Never thought I would leave my mom at this stage, and we would really like to take her with us, but she has community right where she is, and she doesn't want to leave it, so I'm glad for that. But I would not be doing this alone, and so it's only because I have found my beloved that we can enter into this next chapter and do this new thing together in a way that feels right. The timing feels right. I will also remind you that it was only 8 years ago, in 2017, when 3 of your clergy left in 10 months. And so I've heard a lot of fear and a lot of concern about the fact that I'm leaving on the heels of Seth, and that was not planned. That too is just part of the way the timing worked. I am not leaving as a reaction to Seth's leaving, nor am I leaving as a reaction to Dwayne's campaigning for mayor. It's just about timing and God's timing for us. But in 2017, I came in following Kathy Crook's departure, and I came in as a half-time transitional minister for pastoral care. And on my very first Sunday, someone said to me, "Enjoy your short stay with us." And I can't remember who that was, but 8 years later, I want to say a few things to that person. It was also very aware that halftime was not enough time to offer pastoral care here. And we were in the midst of rapid change, because not 6 months after I arrived, Carla left. And then just 3 months after that, Jeff Sarton left. And there was a lot of change in a short amount of time. And look at this. Plymouth is still standing, and still standing strong. And you invited me into your life, right? We have had 8 years to build this beautiful relationship, and whoever is coming next, and whatever, I just pray you will open your hearts to them too, and you will form the kind of relationship that you need to feel loved and cared for. So I'm happy to take any questions, if you're any wonderings that you might have. Yes, Anne.
Well, I won't tell you how I feel right now, because I'm trying to be positive for you, and but I want to thank you for including Mary Oliver's poem in your letter, because it helped me at age 90 to say to myself, what do I want to do? And it helped me understand your journey, and I appreciated that very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Thank you. Other questions? Hi, Tom.
Hi. I'm wondering, you wear almost as many hats as Doug wore. And I'm wondering, are you having like auctioning them off, or giving them away, or do you have to pay somebody to take them, and just how you envision that happening over the next couple of months?
Well, again, I'm newly into this role as executive minister, and I will be faithful to that until till my leaving. Really, the way that Dwayne and I have worked things out in terms of that, especially without a director of operations, is that I've taken on sort of some human resources needs, particularly around staff support, staff enrichment, staff encouragement. I've taken on some more supervisees, direct reports, but all of that which I'm doing really falls with the director of operations. So that piece of my portfolio will easily transfer to whoever comes into that office, which is why there's so much energy being placed right now in finding a director of operations. In terms of, I'll let the deacons address more of this, but I have strongly encouraged the deacons to have someone in place as I'm leaving to be the minister for pastoral care, congregational care. That's a gap we don't need or want. And some continuity there will be really important. And to that end, I want to remind you of Bertie Cunningham, who's here, and Bertie wave. Bertie is our pastoral care intern. She is already forging some really beautiful relationships. If you are feeling the need to talk about transition and change, or if you have a pastoral care need, I'm still available and I'm ready to respond, and so is Bertie. And so she will continue here at least through the end of June and possibly longer as our pastoral care intern, but I really want to encourage you to connect with Bertie and to develop some relationship with her too.
We'll have several things to say about what's coming next, but before we leave Beth, I want to say how courageous it is for Beth to make this move at this time. We'll have a chance at some kind of leaving do for her to say lots of praiseful things, but I would love for a few minutes if we kind of followed in Ann Seltz's path and told Beth how much we have loved her and have appreciated her before we turn to what we're going to do next.
Well, that's one way to put people on the spot.
I love you for many reasons, and I loved when you went on our first trip to the border. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful that you have brought the ritual of Star Words to us. Mm-hmm. I look forward to it every year. I have them all on my little altar at home. They guide me, and I just am filled with gratitude for you and for that ritual.
Thank you. At our Board of Spiritual Formation meeting this week, the board has already decided to take all my words and to continue the Star Word tradition. So, yeah.
Beth, I love you too. Peg here.
Yeah. Hi, Peg.
And I want to reiterate the courage. I was so touched by your marriage and your engagement, and it was such a beautiful thing. And I have just really appreciated the contemplative services that you've brought to Plymouth, but mostly for being a woman of God who is multifaceted, fluid, and resilient, and we will miss you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beth, I will never forget when you came to our home. I think it was on a Sunday, and it was during COVID, so we weren't able to be at church. We were afraid. My husband was dealing with treatment for lymphoma, and you came and brought flowers, and we couldn't hug or shake hands, but you handed me some flowers, and I will never forget that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beth, I just want to say that, thanks, Emily. that you just did such wonderful funerals. I always thought, oh, good, Beth will do my funeral. Well, I mean, we do have a summer connection in Detroit Lakes. Maybe I'll come up there. But anyway, your funerals were just such a gift. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you for your authenticity from the pulpit and everywhere else. There is a depth that can be achieved only when someone is fully real with us, and I have cherished every minute of it.
Thanks, Rebecca.
So we'll have other opportunities to do this. I just wanted to give Beth a flavor of our affection for her before we spring into, okay, now what? Right. Just, so, Peter, you're back.
So one of the things that's been on people's minds, I know, is, well, okay, we got all these ministers leaving. What's going to happen? Well, we do have a plan. And we sent out a little note on Friday that kind of explained that. But I would like Nancy Gores to say a word about, she's the chair of the search committee for our intentional interim minister. And I would just like her to say a word about where we are on that, because that I think will be helpful for you to know.
Thanks, Peter. So I would invite the folks that are on the committee to come on up, because this is a group effort. So the people on the search committee that are here, would you please join me? I also think it's reassuring for people to see who we are, that we're not some unknown entity out there, but what we are your fellow parishioners working on this and doing our best. We're all not here, but these are the few that are. We have eight of us all together, but including me and including Beth, who has been a co-chair. We have received 10 applications, which is pretty good for a little role. I mean, an interim minister is like a little part of the whole ministerial pie. And of those 10, they came from various parts of the country. They have various male and female, various parts of the country, not all UCC, a variety of backgrounds. Several of them, the majority of them, had actual interim training and actual interim experience, and some of those had large church experience. And we felt those were 3 important criteria amongst all the other minister qualities that someone needs to bring to the table. This role is not going to do Seth's portfolio. This role is not going to do Beth's portfolio per se. This is a role, and I think the job description is on the website. This is someone who's going to come in and be our minister and help us be a better 21st century church, whatever that turns out to mean. And that will be the part of the process. Is our governance working well? Is our clergy model working well? Are we aligning what we want to do with our budget and our resources? Do we need to do some shifting in that? What is our true calling as Plymouth, planted where we are? Those kinds of bigger questions in the midst of it all is sort of the focus of this job. I am really excited to say that we are in the end game of this process. We're not totally there yet. It's like a Tetris game, you know, we're moving a few more pieces to get them all in line, but we have 2 top candidates, and we're really excited, and I think we will, and here's the better news, they are interested in us too. I mean, as Beth said, it's a 2-way street, right? So there we are, and so, you know, I hope that we're back, you know, talking again soon. So we're excited. We want you to know that. It's going to be okay.
Does anybody have any questions or comments that you'd like to make to us as deacons? Karen.
Could you give us a little more information about a transitional minister, how that person would be selected, when they would come on board, and what they might do?
Sure. Beth, you want to answer that question? Because she's been our go-to person for this person that's going to be a transitional person.
So there are a variety of terms that one can use when you're inviting someone in to serve for a particular purpose in a church without maybe going through a full search process for a settled call. Remember, when you are calling someone into a settled role, you have to have a congregational meeting and approve that. In the interim case that Nancy referred to, that is a hired position, and so are some other terms: a transitional minister, a designated term. Sometimes they're called bridge minister, implying that this person is coming in for a certain time and purpose. That was the way I entered into Plymouth, as a transitional minister, leaving the door open for something a little more long-lasting. But again, maybe some of you were there on the snowstorm in April of 2018 when you all voted to, number one, suspend the bylaws because my process was atypical, and then voted to call me into a settled position. So a transitional minister, or whatever that term that they decide to use, it could be hired by a very small group of people here upon approval of the deacons, because the deacons actually have the capacity and authority to facilitate the hiring of anyone coming in a transitional role. And so it's my hope, we have really, there's really great clergy who are ready to do congregational care in a variety of ways. And I think it's very feasible that we could have someone in place that would have that part of my current portfolio and some of the programmatic pieces around congregational life to be ready to go shortly after I would leave. Does that help, Karen?
Yes.
Is there something more you want to ask?
How long would that person be here?
That is really up to the deacons to determine initially. It's also because you're moving into work with an intentional interim minister. I think there's lots that is currently will need some congregational discernment around the clergy model. How many people? How many clergy? What roles do the clergy need to serve? Where might we increase or empower our staff to take on some roles typically held by clergy? There's a lot out there. So I think it can be a really rich and inviting time for people to be involved in helping us move towards the future.
Right, this type of transitional person that Beth is talking about, we could hire, let's say, for 6 months. But after a couple of months, we could say we want to extend that another 6 months or whatever. But we are facing all kinds of issues here at Plymouth. Like Beth just mentioned, as far as what does our congregation, what are we able to afford as far as clergy goes, as far as staff goes? Those are issues that hopefully the interim minister is going to help us with, to give us a look that's not internal, that's looking from the outside, to help us with our internal issues. And so all of these, so we're going to have two kind of interim ministers here at some time, along with Dwayne, who will be, now, during all this time, Dwayne remains our lead minister, at least until Easter. After that, we're talking about Dwayne taking on less responsibility as he gets into his campaign. Dwayne, do you want to say anything more about that? And but he's our lead minister up through Easter. Beth's our executive minister until she leaves April 11th. And they've both committed to us as deacons that they are going to work full-time as they have been, and are committed to doing their jobs as best as they can during that time. And they have delineated how that responsibility with Seth gone is going to be, and then what the interim will take on. So we're feeling real confident, at least up until Easter.
You can be confident even after that. You can be confident because, again, what I also want you to understand is when that interim minister and that transition minister comes in, we'll be doing that relationship would be, certainly we'll begin to know each other and learn each other, but the working relationship would be like what it was with me, Beth, and Seth, where we do this together. We look at what needs to be done, we divide the work, we plan the work, and even after we get to the point after Easter, those two ministers will, again, grab on some of what I'm responsible for. But I plan to be here. It might go down to maybe halftime. It's hard to sort of delineate what that time will be, but you'll see me in that pulpit. You won't see me, you'll see me all the time. You'll still get tired of my face probably. But Sundays I will be here and working with that team and acclimating that team, orienting that team to the work that we do. I also want to I have some good news. We have good, solid candidates for Director of Operations, the first of one of those promising candidates. Hopefully you pray for us. Our panel team will be meeting with that first candidate on Tuesday. And looks very promising, and we're praying that God will guide that conversation. There are two others that we've got to get on that calendar. Hard to do it because we have 5 people on that panel, and we are trying to get everybody on the same page. But once that Director of Operations person is in, many of those financial and human resources responsibilities will reside there the way they did with Ann when she was here. And that is a job that will really give us context for that new ministry team that will arise upon Beth's departure.
So we are, Ann, go ahead. Do you have a question?
It's very important to me, personally, that we have a woman minister on the staff. It's very important because I grew up in a church that did not allow women that kind of equality. So I just am voicing that, and I hope others will voice that too. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. We all agree on that. Any other? Bill?
I'd just like to make a statement about the Director of Operations, which has been a fraught issue now for several months, and we face the realization that a new Director of Operations might be hired, who knows when, perhaps in a few weeks, perhaps in a few months, but there's going to be a learning curve for that individual as well. There have been a lot of things in the church that have been put on the back burner, a tremendous number of things on the back burner. I'm a member, co-chair of the Board of Community Life, and a lot of things that we've been trying to do, a lot of times our efforts, and this again is my perception, and part of it may be miscolored as it were, but we've been in a mode of the church in general of trying to protect our staff, trying to protect those downstairs behind that locked door from being overworked. And therefore, a lot of things just haven't gotten done or can't reliably be assumed to be done. And that's a somewhat jaundiced view that I have, and it may not be held by many others, but I think we need to pay big time attention to this new Director of Operations who was already hired a few months ago and disappeared, and now we have another one again. It's going to have a learning curve. We've got a church app that many of us would like to see re-energized. The what's the one on the
Church Life.
Church Life, which is tied into the general database, which is on the website or accessible on the website. In any event, that has the potential to have pictures. It has the potential to have small bios. At least I hope the new one that we're going to be buying into has that. In any event, I just want to reinforce that Director of Operations is a critical position. We've got so many critical positions coming forth now. Let's get moving.
We couldn't agree with you more. And that's a real key position, the Director of Operations. Dan.
Paula Northwood, when she was here as the interim senior minister, worked on these bigger questions that went beyond what the clergy and staff can do, but also what we as a church could probably take on.
Yes.
And she also concluded, looking at the financial foundation of the church, we are a 3 clergy church. She said that was what our budget can afford, long term. But I have witnessed, looking at the 3 of you work, that we are been pressing the clergy. It's just that you're running from one thing to the next and have little time for yourself to sort of think and reflect. Will this interim transitional minister, the one that's helping us figure things out, deal with the congregational questions of what it is that we can truly and realistically aspire to?
Yes. The answer to that question is a big yes. That's in their job description. That's what they're going to be doing. Rebecca.
So just to clarify, there are 2 people being called, right? They're not called, but being hired. There is an interim and a transitional, and those are 2 different people.
They're 2 different people, yes. Well, thank you all. Sure, absolutely. Nancy.
I think everybody knows this, but our deacons have been working like 40-plus hours a week on Plymouth issues. And while I'm exaggerating, it's not too far off. And so I would like to, we're a volunteer organization, so I would just like to recognize you guys and thank you for
And I want to add to that. I want to recognize Annette Atkins and Johanna Schussler, particularly in these last couple of weeks, have been working their tail off. You need to know this as a congregation. I'm the moderator. I also am dealing with a number of, unfortunately, a number of physical issues. And so I have decided that I needed to step back a little bit from what I'm doing as moderator. And Annette and Johanna particularly, but all of the deacons, but Annette and Johanna specifically, have really stepped up and really helped and have given me some room and some space. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. As we go forward, I want to just remind us of the words of St. Paul again, because I think they're so powerful. There is only one thing that matters, and that is faith. Faith that is lived through love. Amen.